What if I told you that a 22-year-old actress might have to pay $120 million for playing a Disney princess? What seemed like every young actress's dream, bringing Snow White to life, the character that launched the Disney empire, has turned into a legal, media, and financial nightmare. Rachel Zegler, the star chosen to lead this ambitious reimagining, is now being blamed not only for the film's failure, but is reportedly the direct target of an unprecedented move, a possible demand for financial compensation from the studio. What's happening behind closed doors at Disney isn't damage control anymore, it's war. And in this war, the leading lady may end up financially ruined. So, what exactly did she do to make the world's most powerful studio turn its sword against its own princess? How did the star of a fairy tale find herself facing real legal consequences? For a multi-million-dollar flop, stay with us. Because what you're about to hear redefines the term fall from grace. Rachel Zegler signed on with Disney to star in the Snow White remake with the promise of becoming the new face of the company. The goal was clear: take a beloved classic and update it for modern audiences, with a strong, independent heroine and no outdated Prince saves the day storyline. But things started going wrong from the very first interviews. Her comments, some mocking, others outright confrontational, sparked immediate backlash. She referred to the original Prince as a stalker, downplayed the love story, and suggested that the 1937 animated version was outdated, ridiculous, and irrelevant to today's audience. These comments went viral. What Zegler may not have realized, or seriously underestimated, was that Snow White isn't just a movie. It's a symbol, the foundation of Disney's identity, the first princess, the root of it all. And when nostalgic audiences saw that the actress wasn't just failing to honor the story, but seemed to mock it, the backlash was swift and brutal. Social media exploded. Hashtags like "You Not My Snow White" began trending. Every one of Rachel's public appearances only added more fuel to the fire. Disney, which initially defended her, began stepping back. Then came the release of the movie, and it was a harsh wake-up call. Despite a budget exceeding $250 million in production, effects, marketing, and promotion, Snow White had one of the weakest openings in recent Disney history. Only $43 million on its first weekend in the US, and less than $90 million globally. For any studio, that's a disaster. For Disney, humiliating. But the worst part wasn't just the numbers, it was the silence. No viral scenes, no spontaneous applause, no kids leaving theaters dressed as Snow White. The movie didn't connect with anyone, not classic fans, not new viewers, just silence. Behind the scenes, things got tense. Executives began asking not just how this happened, but who was responsible, and all eyes turned to Rachel Zegler. Sources say that a closed-door meeting took place where top Disney executives first floated the idea of demanding financial compensation from the actress. They reportedly cited brand damage, loss of image, devaluation of IP, and, most seriously, violation of contractual clauses. Apparently, Zegler's contract included strict conditions about public behavior, image, and preserving the legacy of the character. And according to Disney's legal team, she had crossed that line. One leaked quote from that meeting said, "She torched $1 billion brand, and we paid her to do it." Zegler was reportedly notified through her agent and broke down in tears when she heard what had been announced as the biggest break of her career could now become her financial ruin. Soon after the controversy peaked, Zegler began posting apologies on social media, but fans didn't buy it. The tone felt cold, scripted, and completely at odds with her earlier comments. Experts suggested the apologies were written by Disney's crisis management team. Not heartfelt, just damage control. But it was too late. Internally, Disney began talking about cancelling future projects with her, pulling her from marketing, campaigns, and even exploring legal action to recover part of the estimated $120 million in losses the studio blames on her public behavior. There's still no official lawsuit, but insiders claim legal options are being explored, from withholding payments to invoking morality and conduct clauses. This would be unprecedented. Never before has an actress been considered financially responsible for the failure of a big-budget film. If Disney moves forward with this, it could send shockwaves through Hollywood. The mere idea of holding an actor liable for a box office disaster is sending the industry into panic mode. Studios and talent agencies alike are watching every development. If Disney succeeds, it could trigger a new era of restrictive contracts, where one wrong word in an interview could lead to legal consequences. Actor unions are already on alert. Spokespeople from SAG-AFTRA have indicated, without naming names, that they will not allow studios to turn actors into scapegoats for failed creative decisions. Because what's at stake isn't just Rachel Zegler's career, it's the balance of power between artists and studios. If this dynamic changes, actors could stop being admired stars and start being the fall guys for anything that goes wrong. Meanwhile, the harshest trial isn't happening in courtrooms. It's unfolding in real time on TikTok, YouTube, and X, formerly Twitter. Every past interview of Rachel Zegler is being dissected, clipped, and reposted. Social media has become a forensic archive, searching for evidence that she disrespected the original Snow White or acted with arrogance. Clips of just a few seconds are edited with dramatic music, highlighted quotes, subtitles, and hashtags, building the collective verdict. She killed the magic, but not everyone is against her. Some content creators defend Zegler, claiming Disney used her as a scapegoat for a flawed strategy. They argue the script, the tone, and the entire direction of the remake were the real problems, not the actress. And now, she may be paying the ultimate price. This polarization has sparked an online cultural battle where the discussion is no longer just about a movie, but about identity, tradition, freedom of expression, and what it means to represent a generation. The most tragic part of this case is that Rachel Zegler wasn't an established figure with years of experience. She was just getting started. After her role in West Side Story, many saw her as a rising star. Steven Spielberg had backed her, critics had praised her, and her charisma seemed perfect for connecting with younger audiences. But now, the stigma surrounding her is deep. Producers and executives have started avoiding associations with her, fearing that any new project with her could be tainted by the same backlash. Industry sources claim that even some signed collaborations are being revisited. No cancellations have been announced, but rumors point to strategic pauses, campaign restructuring, and even recasting in progress. Because in Hollywood, when a face becomes synonymous with controversy, no budget wants to take the risk. Zegler, without having made a mistake in her portrayal of the character, is being judged for her tone, her ideas, and how she expressed her enthusiasm for a new version of Snow White, which simply didn't convince anyone. Meanwhile, Disney faces a much deeper identity crisis. The failure of Snow White isn't an isolated incident. It adds to a chain of negative reactions toward other recent productions that try to modernize classics with more contemporary narratives. Every time a remake fails, critics point to the same issue. The essence is being lost, the original emotion, the heart of the stories. Now, with Rachel Zegler at the center of the storm, the studio faces a dilemma. If they proceed with a legal claim against her, they risk looking like a giant, crushing a young actress. But if they do nothing, they might send the message that anyone can damage their brand with no consequences. What's at stake is not just the relationship with one actress, it's the future of a formula that once seemed infallible. Take an old story, tweak it for a new generation, and rely on nostalgia to do the rest. This time, the spell didn't work. And the question everyone is asking is, what will be the next move of the kingdom? As the dust begins to settle and the final financial disaster figures for Snow White solidify, one thing is clear. This wasn't just a bad business decision, it was a breaking point for Disney. For over a decade, Disney relied almost exclusively on nostalgia to fuel its cinematic empire. From The Lion King to The Little Mermaid to Aladdin, the formula was simple. Recover a classic, slightly adapt it, and capitalize on the audience's affection. But this time, the magic broke. What happened with Snow White has made many things that were once taken for granted now open for questioning. No longer does a charismatic princess, a modern message, and a bloated budget guarantee success. The audience has started demanding something deeper: respect for the original material, emotional consistency, and above all, authenticity. What Disney sold as an evolution, many interpreted as betrayal. This scandal has put the entire industry on alert. Marketing departments are rethinking how stars are prepared for their campaigns. Contracts are being revisited to better balance freedom of expression with brand expectations. Studios are privately wondering if it's time to abandon, or at least pause the era of remakes before it erodes the trust of their most loyal audiences. Rachel Zegler, meanwhile, has become the unwitting symbol of that transformation. A young actress with talent caught in the crossfire of corporate decisions, strategic errors, and an audience that no longer tolerates what it once forgave. What started as a golden opportunity has ended up as a harsh warning of what can happen when creative vision, commercial execution, and cultural sensitivity don't align. What began as a simple reinterpretation of a classic tale has turned into a painful lesson for the entire industry. Snow White didn't just fail at the box office. It failed to connect, to evoke emotion, to respect what once made Disney the home of magic. And in the midst of that collapse, Rachel Zegler went from being a shining promise to a figure marked by controversy. Now, with the real possibility of having to pay up to $120 million, her story becomes a brutal cautionary tale. When the character you portray is bigger than you, every word, every gesture, and every interview can become a double-edged sword. But at the same time, this story also reveals the cracks in a system, willing to sacrifice its own talents to save a structure that may no longer resonate with today's audience sensibilities. Today, Rachel Zegler's name is forever linked to Disney's biggest misstep in years, but it's also tied to a pivotal moment, a turning point where Hollywood finally had to ask itself if nostalgia can continue to be manipulated without consequences. Now, we want to know what you think. Do you think Rachel Zegler should bear the weight of this failure? Or has she been used as a scapegoat by an industry unwilling to accept its own mistakes? Is Disney punishing its actress, or is it just trying to save what remains of its crown? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We read everything, and if you want to uncover the secrets Hollywood tries to hide, the conflicts behind the scenes, and the real stories that change the course of the most anticipated films, subscribe now and activate the bell. Because here, the magic is not edited, it's exposed.